Hello, and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. Happy New Year. We are here live on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network. You can find us at newstreamingnetwork.com, the home of goingboldmedia.com. I am your co-host, Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year.
Hi, everybody. Before we get started, if you would like, comment, share, and subscribe to get our message out, that would be lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Our topic for today, cultivating what works for you and your just right life. Yeah. I have to say, the funny thing is when I was writing just right life down on my notepad, I heard just right in parentheses, now life.
Yeah.
Because we continue to experiment and explore to discover what is working for us and what isn't. And I know for me personally, there have been, since we did our whole inventory of what works and doesn't work, there have been some things that I was carrying that were working and they're not working anymore.
Yeah.
So reevaluation is something. Continuing to explore and experiment has helped me bring to the surface those things that were working and came with me and aren't working so much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just realized my quilt that I usually put over my lap, which is silly, but it keeps my legs warm while I'm sitting, is behind me and it looks a little crazy. So let's just fix it. Yeah. And it's interesting because I remember a long time ago, somebody said to me, I'm sure it's a famous quote, but you never know what you don't know, right? You can't know what you don't know. And I was sort of like, yeah. But boy, it really rings true for what Judy's talking about right now. And like in my experience is that you're going along and you think this is the way things are. And then you get that opportunity to get a glimpse of, yeah, but does it have to be like that? Or, how else could it be? And then you realize, wow, I'm actually fully adjusted, 100% adapted to living with something that actually I would never choose out of a gift basket. If we were playing Secret Santa or what's the Yankee Swap, right? Where you go for the gifts. There were a lot of things in my life that if somebody had said, who wants this? I would have said, not me. But because it had been there since day one, or at least for as long as I could remember, and it was a part of my life, I just accepted that was a part of life.
Yeah, it was funny. There were a lot of things that were done growing up, patterns, beliefs, all those things that we talk about, that it wasn't until I got away to college. I went away to college and started to hear and see how other people lived and how they were growing up and how they did grow up, and traditions at the holidays. Not all of them were life shattering or inspirational. It's just the fact that I grew up in a neighborhood with cookie cutter homes, and we all played together and mothers watched out for the kids on the streets, and we all things were similar as far as we knew. So to take me out of that environment and throw me in a different one where people were coming from everywhere, it was always very interesting to me. I was always very curious to hear what other people did and how they grew up and the things that they believed and traditions that they had. And that was what opened my door, my mind to, maybe I can start doing some things differently too. And then when you move out on your own, it's like, what do you want to do? This is your house now. And then when I had my kid, it was like, okay, well, what traditions do I want to carry on and what new ones would I like to start? Never once did I ever think of applying that to my own life too.
Right. Right. And it's the way we think about things. We were just talking this morning. I guess we're going there. We're just talking this morning about I'm just discovering, which a lot of you will be like, what? How could you not see this before? I'm really just discovering that I'm a growth minded person who needs to be in a growth open environment. So it doesn't matter if it's at home, if it's, with my family, or if it's in an organization I'm working with, or it's with students or whatever it is. I want to work with the people who want to grow. That's what matters to me, putting process in place so that we can become masters of the level that we're at, and then to begin to create what is that next level, what wants to grow from here, what's that, build a solid foundation for yourself so that you can then reach up for that next foundation that you're inspired to build, not because it's some sort of, need to climb to the top of the mountain so everybody can look at me, but just because there's that divine inspiration that's inside of us, that if we have a solid foundation, one that supports us in being able to do what it is that we're already doing, then that allows the freedom of energy and time and focus and whatnot to be able to start creating that new thing that's trying to come through you. And that is something that I value, and just naturally how I approach life. And I have spent much of my life in places where people said they wanted to grow, or flat out said they didn't, and I didn't believe them. I didn't believe that could be a possibility, that you could actually just want to keep doing the same thing around and around and around in a circle, because I thought, well, you can't really do that,
Oh, but you can.
right? Well, you can, except that we change, like the conditions change,
Hmm.
right? So you can do something around and around in a circle, but you start getting older, you start, have more experience, you've learned things. We might become, more grumpy, more frustrated. I mean, we don't stay the same. Is
Resentful.
that Yes, we can grow more full of pain and resentment and frustration, or we can continue to evolve. And so the idea of staying the same, like, oh, I found this comfort zone and now I'm just going to stay here, it doesn't actually work,
Mm-mm.
because we don't just stay. We are always changing.
Yeah, nothing ever stays the same.
Mm-mm.
The question I was hearing when you said process and procedure, why is that important to you? Why is process and procedure important?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it frees us up, right? So with process
How
and procedure, you get to create. You can use your creativity to create process and procedure,
hmm
which then allows you to stop thinking about the same thing over and over and over again in the same way. You get to now say, okay, I now have a process in place that I can follow,
hmm
right? Or that we can follow when it's in a business environment. So we
hmm
now have a process we can follow where the person with the right information and responsibility has the ability to touch the process in their place and inform it with what they know. It's kind of like, imagine a train car, right? The train car starts at the beginning of the track. The person with the information, oh, we just got a new customer, for example,
hmm
they know who that new customer is. They know what it is that they wanted to buy. So they put their information in the train, and they send that card down to the next people that need to know that information, who then take that information, they process it, they put the new, whatever they've added to it back in the train car, and they send it to the next person. And with that process in place, every time a customer comes in, everybody doesn't have to get together and say, what are we going to do?
hmm
Right? How's this going to happen? Like, who knows what? And start pointing fingers. And, all of a sudden everybody is complaining that everybody else isn't doing their job, even though nobody really knows what their job is, because they don't know how they interact with the train. Right? We need to know that. And once we have that done, once we have that basic path down, that process down, and everybody knows it, everybody's able to master it, which helps them to develop their confidence, right? That their skill set, their knowledge, their sense of, like, I know what I'm doing and I know the value of it here in the organization and know how to tell if I'm doing a good job with that. Then that allows people to say, now what's next? What else can we do? What else are we inspired to do?
hmm
Right?
So, is it
Yeah.
safe to say that for you, process and procedure brings peace?
Oh yeah.
hmm That's
What
what
do
they
we
were.
have with, oh, sorry. Yeah.
Process and procedure brings peace. And in that peace, that's where you can tap into the creation.
Yeah.
When we're in a constant state of chaos, we've talked about zone one, zone two. We can't experience that peace. So
No.
procedure brings peace. And yes, mastering, feeling like you've mastered your responsibility, your job, whatever. That mastery brings peace because, like
Yes.
you said, you're not monkey minding.
Yes. Yes. And you're not being bombed, right? So you're not having people randomly come through and tell you you did the wrong thing or you did something the wrong way or you, right? Because when everybody's guessing, when every time you have an interaction inside your organization or outside of your organization, and everybody's making it up as they go along, which parts of us really like to do, because it gives a sense of control, a sense of power, like, oh, I'm just going to cowboy this. But when we're doing that, it makes it so that nobody else in the organization can have a clear sense of what it is that they're supposed to be doing or how they're supposed to be doing it, which means at any moment somebody can come along, anybody could come along and say, I disagree with the way you're doing it. And if it hasn't been agreed upon that that's the way things are done here until we find a better way, right? Because we can always change, we can always evolve. But
Hmm.
if it hasn't been agreed upon, everybody's guessing and hoping that what they're doing is either okay or that nobody's going to notice.
Hmm.
And that's what you have inside of a lot of organizations. You have people trying to keep their heads down
Yeah.
and not be noticed because they know that they don't really know what they're doing because they haven't been given a framework. It's not because they're incompetent, it's because they don't have guidelines that really enable them to know that what they're doing is the way the organization wants it done.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that work out in the business world, and they'll get hired at a job, and that company is in the weeds, so they
Right.
don't have time to properly train for the job that you're doing.
Yes,
So you really are winging it.
you really are.
Based on what you've come in with, the knowledge that you have, and exactly what you said, praying that it all works out. And that is
Yeah.
extremely stressful.
Oh, so stressful. Yeah. Incredibly stressful. And, it most of the time, if there isn't time to train, it's because, first of all, they've created an environment of chaos, which is the norm out there.
Mhm.
Um, and in that environment of chaos, nobody has the presence of mind. You have to be at peace to sit down and think, right? To be inspired, to follow your intuition, you actually have to have calm in there. If you've got 1,000 thoughts running through your head, like, oh no, danger. Did I do this? Did I do that? What about this? Oh, I forgot to. If that's going on inside of your head all the time, you're not able to sit down and maybe, I don't know, write a list of things you need this person to do, need this job to do, like a list of things that somebody could use,
Mhm.
right? Not conceptual BS. Not this, people love to write job descriptions that are like, to be, perform analysis on the financial aspects of the company. What does that mean? I mean, I have an MBA. I've worked in over 100 companies, right, as a consultant. I can tell you that in 100 companies, they would all have a different idea of what that means because it doesn't mean anything. Right? Actually, write down what you want people to do. What is it that you want them to do? And what are the priorities? Right? And we can't do that in an environment of chaos. And the ego doesn't want it done anyway because chaos is where it reigns.
Yeah. Chaos is where ego rules.
Mhm.
Yes. Um, I just keep hearing that we need to make it clear. This doesn't just pertain in the work world. I mean, think it all. I know. When I had Maddie, I started working part time. So being that stay at home mom, running that house is process and procedures.
Oh my God. So
Yeah,
true.
process and procedures everywhere. We've talked about your routine at the barn. We've talked about that in earlier shows. Process and procedures. It's everywhere. It's in everything we do. From your
Yeah.
morning routine, that's a process and procedure.
Yeah.
Taking a shower, process and procedure.
Yeah. Yeah. The more streamlined your day is, the more free you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a, my day is full of rituals. About, I do this and then I do, I come out and make a cup of tea and I sit and do morning pages and my dog sits beside me. So I alternately write and, rub her belly. I mean, this is what we do until my husband appears on the scene like an hour later, which it works great for all of us. Uh, you know, eh, but everything is done in a way that I don't have to reinvent how I get through my day in a way that fills me up. Every time that I get up, I don't have to think, what am I going to do today? It's like I know a lot of the things that I'm going to do that need to be done in order to make sure that my day is peaceful.
And that's what's important to you.
Yeah.
Peace,
Yeah.
that and when you make peace a priority, you begin to construct your day and cultivate your environment that
Mm,
promotes that and supports that. And that's what we're talking about.
yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's interesting because when we're in chaos, it seems like it couldn't like it's happening,
Mhm.
right? It seems like, "Oh, I've got way too much, it must be nice to have the luxury of being able to um, create order for yourself." Because I know one of the things people say to me all the time is every day is different. Every day is a new challenge, right? And it can be, sure. I mean, life brings challenges. Um, and that's okay. But if we have most of our life, the 80-20 principle, if we have 80% of our day happening kind of on autopilot, where it's really not taking a lot of mental energy because we know how to do it, we know where everything is, it's located in a convenient place. We're not wasting energy running from there to there to try to get something done over here, right? We've thought this through. How can I make that really efficient? And we've created all these little pockets of efficiency in our day, and then we practice them until it becomes autopilot. It takes very little energy to do 80% of what needs to happen in our day. And actually, our mind is free. And this is what I do. We always talk about my manure meditation. But when I'm in the barn for 2 hours in the morning doing my chores, right, my mind is free to have conversations with spirit, with my intuition, with maybe with my ancestors. I mean, I don't know, whatever energies come forward, I'm free to have those conversations and to get inspired about what I might do with the parts of my day that are wide open because I'm able to be a place that can receive inspiration.
Oh, we have a comment.
We do.
Wendy, one place I worked asked me to come back 7 months after I left the company to train my replacement. They didn't know my job and thought they could wing it, but realized after going through 6 replacements and the books being full of errors that they needed me to come back and train them. Typical of how they operate. And it's not the optimal way to run a business. Absolutely not, Wendy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amen. And that's such a good example. I've heard a lot of people, so I've been in the finance, accounting, operations, space in companies for years, and mostly architectural and engineering firms, but not all. Um, and generally, there is this sense of like, well, just go do the accounting thing,
Mhm.
right? Like the accounting is something that happens over there, and really not an understanding of accounting just takes the information that's available in the company and turns it into usable data, usable information, or takes the data and turns it into usable information. That it's not something we can't go in the back corner and do accounting, right? You actually have to be integrated into the rest of the organization in order to be able to get the information and data that's flowing through and to do something useful with that. Um, So it's interesting, Wendy, because in a lot of organizations, people get frustrated. This happens a lot. People in accounting feel underappreciated. And one of the things that I've realized is it's because so many people don't understand, fundamentally don't understand what's happening in accounting and don't value it as a result, right? It's like we always shy away from the things we don't understand.
Hmm.
We'd rather focus our energy on the things that we think we're good at, because it makes us feel more competent. And business leaders and executives are no different. So if you start talking accounting terms and they don't understand what you're saying, or they think conceptually that they already know everything, so they don't need to hear anything more about it, which happens, a lot. I mean, the majority of time you start trying to talk to people about accounting and they're like, either it doesn't matter or I already know it all. um, that makes it very difficult to integrate the processes and procedures that are needed through an organization in order for it to really flourish.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know, my ex, where she works, as she moved her way through the organization, there was more and more job responsibilities put on her, put on her, put on her, to the point where if she were to leave now, they would have absolutely no idea how to do her job for the very reason, Wendy,
Yeah.
because there's been so much that they didn't, they didn't have somebody to do it, or they didn't know how to do it. And they'd be like, hey, figure this out. And she has the processes in place and she knows it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're a figure it out type, who can go into chaos and figure out how to get things done, you will never be at, a shortage of work.
Mm-mm.
However, there is a huge price that we pay
Yeah, absolutely.
because we're not, the person with a magic wand generally ends up getting more and more and more responsibility and less appreciated because, like my husband always says, he's in engineering, building design, and he would say, if you design a building and it works perfectly, nobody cares. If you design a building and it doesn't work, you're never going to hear the end of it, right? So if you're somebody who will take things on and figure it out and make it happen, nobody cares how you're doing that. Nobody cares how much effort it's taking.
Mm-mm.
What they care about is that they don't have to deal with it, right? As soon as you start dropping a ball here or there, or that person's gone and they find out, whoa, who was doing all of this before? Why is this suddenly a problem? Now they appreciate it.
Yeah,
So it's one of the challenges we have in our organizations and in our homes.
absolutely. Well, I saw it in teaching all the time too. Those challenging children, if you were good and with working with them, calming them down, getting them to settle down, whatever, getting them to work. All of a sudden you find out you're getting more and more of them.
Yeah.
And it's not, you do such a great job. It's like, here, take them.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We'll send the difficult ones to you, but we don't want to compensate you for your special, um, gifts that you're bringing to the table,
No, and
right?
definitely at home. Yes. It's one of those things. You grocery shop, you have a refrigerator with food. Nobody pays attention until they open the refrigerator and there's no food.
Ex- yes. Yes, that is exactly true.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
The home is running smoothly. Yeah. Nobody cares. It's when things start acting up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or nobody knows how to do anything,
Yeah.
at home either. Like, I mean, does everybody in a home know the number for the plumber
Right.
or, the bank or what the setup is for in case of emergencies or, just whatever the things are. And generally it's just, one or two people taking care of it all and doing it like they're going back in their corner and they're taking care of all the things. But the other people in the household aren't learning the processes they use and the thinking, the logic and the experience and the wisdom that they're applying in getting this work done,
Hmm.
right? So they go out and they have their own household and they're clueless.
Yeah. Yeah. And my brother was one that always was on my grandfather's hip. And my grandfather, repaired all his own things at his house. And so my brother knows how to do all that now.
Hmm.
And that is something that people aren't being taught. Back in
Right.
the day, I was a girl, so it wasn't thought that maybe I would want to attach myself to Pop Pop Sip too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So all of those things that are required to make a home run smoothly. You I don't think of all the parts of it. I'm lucky enough that my brother has the apartment downstairs. He takes care of all the hot water heaters and, all of the maintenance uptake. He takes care of all of that.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Yeah.
Whereas I take care of all of the bill paying and the computer stuff because that is not his strength.
Right.
And thinking of all this, if something happened to me tomorrow, he wouldn't know how to pay all the bills. So that's something I'll
Right.
have to address.
Right. Right. I mean, this is actually it's important stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't appreciate the people that we live with, or the people that we partner with in lots of different ways,
Hmm.
because we're not recognizing, it could be at work, it could be, I mean, anywhere really. We don't realize what we're not part of. We're not aware of it. And so if we can communicate with one another about what's happening in our process and why we approach it this way, right? And what's worked and what didn't work. I
Hmm.
mean, this is almost most important, like what blew up in your face that took you 10 years to climb out of that you will never ever ever do again. The people in your life need that information.
Yeah, it's
Right.
very interesting. I've mentioned before that my girlfriend's moving in. Well, she's in, all of her stuff is here, and we've been talking about this almost every day as we're unpacking and finding places for things to go and realizing that, yeah, oh, this is my process. This is what I do. This is what she's used to. Okay, well, what works? What works for us?
Mhm.
Where do we need these things in the kitchen? Where do we need that? It's been hilarious and the point where the chaos because it's like playing a game. She always says it's like playing a game of memory.
Right.
Okay, I know it's here. What box is it in?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's funny because we'll work and work through the day and we'll get to a place where we're done. But things have to be in some type of order for me to be able to sit down and feel at peace.
Yeah.
And the living room is all set up. So we sit on the love seat facing the front window and don't see the chaos behind us.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And that works until the next day when we come out and have, unpack some more. So this cultivating what works for you is something that is actively happening physically in my home right now. And the conversations of what works for her, what works for me are here because of the work that we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because when you're talking about the unpacking, um, yeah, my need for peace is so extreme that I actually will just unpack until it's done. That's what I do. I mean, it doesn't mean that everything there might still be boxes of clothes, for example. Each room might have 2 boxes of clothes or, a box of knickknacks and a box of something. Like each room might have a couple of boxes that aren't unpacked that are things that need to go on the wall. You get the point. Like, but no, functionally, everything is up and running before I go to bed
Yeah.
because I cannot, it does not work for me to get up in the morning and not have everything functional.
Yeah.
It just
We had to do yeah. We had to get the kitchen because
Mhm.
everything else has been kind of, yes, it's functional enough, but the
Yeah,
kitchen complete chaos. And I was like, we can't get you back to work and start the no, we
yeah,
we have some type of order in there so we can get our food, we can get our morning coffees, we can get our all of that routine has to work for me. That
yes, yes, yes. Because if you make the basics hard,
hmm
and this is sort of a core to our message, if the basic things are hard, then that's all you're going to have time for. That's survival mode,
Yeah.
right? So, how do we make the basic day to day things go smoothly?
Yeah.
You know, there are things that we have to think about. Like we need to get food. How are we going to go about that? We have options,
Hmm.
right? How are we going to go about, you know, cleaning our clothes and changing our beds and, you know, getting our house clean and, all of those kinds of things that kind of have to happen. How much of a priority is it and how often are we going to do it? Right. So I actually found that vacuuming every 2 weeks works perfectly fine. Right. Who would, I mean, and I wrestled with that because part of me was like, what? I like, that's aghast. I was aghast at the very idea of it. And I tried to get somebody to come in to vacuum my house on alternating weeks. I was like, oh, I'll do it every 2 weeks, but I'll get somebody else in. You know what? I had 4 people commit to doing it and not show up or send me some, random ass text at the last minute with some excuse about why they couldn't come. And I just realized like, like you people are in the wrong business. Anybody wants to move to my town and open a housekeeping business and show up, you will make bank.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, because people are desperate for people who will just actually follow through on their commitment. And let me say, those people who are not following through, it's because they have chaos in their lives. It's because they get up that day and everything was hard. And
Mhm.
when they thought about adding one more thing to it, which meant leaving the house and actually coming over and doing some work for money, they didn't care that much about the money in the moment because they just had to deal with what was dragging them down at home in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that was a mic drop moment when you said when the basics are hard, everything else is going to be hard.
Yeah.
So in cultivating what works, it's like make your basics.
Yeah.
It's okay to put that routine. It's okay to have those rituals. When you can make the basics flow easily, it allows everything else. It gives permission for everything else to do the same too. And it puts you in that state of mind. And it, for me, it helps me align. It helps me stay aligned.
Yes. Yes. Well, because you're asking yourself, for example, is it important to you to have a made bed? There were a lot of years that I was like, it doesn't make any sense to make your bed because you're just going to get in it again. And I don't even go in my bedroom. My bedroom was upstairs, right? Like, I'm not even going to go in there until it's time for bed.
Hmm.
Now I'm like, oh, my bed's got to be made.
Yeah. Yep.
Just first thing in the morning. That's like after my morning pages. I mean, I know exactly when it happens. But
Hmm.
because I know when it happens, I just go in. My dog even knows, like, don't get on the bed until I move this. And, it's the rituals, those little exercises allow for you to get it done without even realizing you're doing it.
Yeah. Yep. Make the basics easy. Cultivate
Yeah.
your so that it makes your basics easy. It invites the peace in.
Yes. And you're constantly communicating with yourself about, is this what matters to me? How do I feel when I walk into my room and my bed is made?
Hmm.
How do I feel when I walk into my room and my bed is not made? Oh, it doesn't feel any different to me. Okay, that's not a priority,
Right.
right? So don't beat yourself up about the bed not being made. Don't give yourself some idea that it ought to be if you don't actually care, right? That's the
Exactly.
process. If the kitchen if having dishes in the sink bothers you, then what do you need to do to make sure that when you walk into your kitchen in the morning, your stomach doesn't go in a knot?
Right.
What's that going to take? And if you don't care, if you could have kitchen, dishes, dirty dishes piled to the ceiling in your house, and you could have mice hopping from one cup to another, and that doesn't bother you, great. Set up video camera and sell the movies of the mice online. Right? I mean, embrace whatever your thing is. Just like really, I'm saying no judgment. But we have to ask ourselves what matters because society has said every detail of everything matters, and there's a certain way to do it. There's a right way and there's a wrong way, And if you're not doing every single thing, which is too many things, by the way,
Mhm.
right, then there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And therefore, you don't deserve to create the life that will really light you up. And so, this going through the basics in your house and saying, I don't know, is this important to me or is this a social thing that maybe is keeping me down?
Mhm. Good questions to ask.
Yeah. And I want to see the mice jumping from cup to cup, frankly. I mean, if somebody's got that going on, because Cedric, the one mouse, haha, that lives in my house, um, we hear him. And I think there's sort of an Ocean's 11 thing going on. He
Mm.
hasn't gotten into the food cupboard, but I would think that's where he would really wanna go, the vault, where all the good stuff is. So I'm thinking that he's got some sort of Ocean's 11 thing happening. He's got the little microphone, he's trying to listen through
That's hilarious.
stethoscope, right? Stethoscope. I hear him and I can't find him. So,
Now, Cece did say she has to take a commercial break, so I feel like this is the perfect spot to do that.
oh,
Yeah, she needs
so
to take a
she
break
she
today.
said no, it says no break today.
It says no break today?
Mhm.
Oh, I am wrong.
Yeah,
I thought she said, oh, okay. That's what happens when I try to multitask
I
because
know.
I tried to look at the message and then Wendy had a comment up and I was like, I did not juggle well today.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example, right? That's a perfect example about what we're talking about. So it's like, okay, stop. Let's do this. And then we'll do that. I mean, like sharing with everybody, I got to do this and then I got to do that because that's a perfect example of Judy trying to manage. Yeah. No.
No. Thank you, Cece.
Yeah. See, you were trying to handle all the things so that it was smooth for everybody else.
Hmm.
That's my point.
Hmm.
Right? And we can find ourselves, especially us women, we like to make everything seamless for everybody. Yeah. And sometimes it really is okay. Nobody would have gotten upset if Judy had said, wait a minute, I think maybe, Cece's asking if we need a break today. And I don't want to miss Wendy's comment. Like if she had said those things out loud, would anybody have been upset? No. See?
No, no.
So right? Because I think it makes it more, frankly, you're more part of it. This is what we're doing. This is how the experience is. We wanna know what's going on in your world, Judy.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Right, Cece? Yes.
No.
Oh,
How the
very good.
universe works in mysterious ways. Live
Indeed it
examples on this show. We don't screw around.
That's right, but, it's the inside it's by sharing the inside, what's going on the inside. It's sharing our process and our thinking behind our process with people who are receptive, is really empowering. It helps us to connect with one another, and we can share information with one another. Judy and I do it all the time.
Mhm.
How do you approach this? How do you think about that? And we do it absolutely freely because we know the other person, no matter what we say, the other person is going to hear it with an open heart and and absolutely no judgment. It's like, oh, I never thought of it that way before, or ask questions. But there's never a really you do that. We just it's not in us. It was in me
Oh yeah.
for sure.
Def-
Yeah, and that's what this peace is. When you're at peace, you don't need to do that.
Mm-mm.
If I'm happy with the way things are working in my life right now, or I know what it is that I'm working on, and I'm focusing on that and trusting that it will, I'll find my way to work that out to resolve whatever conflicts are present that I'm not able to see at the moment. If I'm working at that, my life's got me pretty busy. right? My head's not peeking over Judy's shoulder to see if I can find fault with her. It's not, because that's not interesting. It's not fulfilling. What's fulfilling is to be involved in our own lives, saying, "Okay, how do I master this?"
Yeah,
Right? What else?
and here's the word cultivating. This is a
Yeah.
relationship that you and I have cultivated. It wasn't like that, we didn't sit in judgment of each other, but we weren't, blah, just spewing our truth all the time either. This
No.
is a relationship that has cultivated.
Mhm.
We both said there's no judgment. Well,
Right.
step by step by step, it was proven to be true. So now we show up and it's like no holding back. And if anything in me pipes up that she's judging me, I know that that's my ego. What's my ego doing? Because
Yeah.
I have a specific class that we're working on that has to do with body image. And this is something that I've put on the shelf and haven't addressed. And, my ego started working. Like, what the hell does Kris know? She hasn't been fat since she was 5. She doesn't know what it takes to lose weight. She doesn't know what it feels like to be heavy in this world. She does. And my ego was working overtime to convince me that Kris was not the person that could help me with this. Well, that's bullshit. I knew it was all false. I knew it wasn't true, but my ego was dominating that dialogue.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I could voice that truth to her that ego started to get quiet
Mhm.
because I called it out on its shit.
Yes. Yes. And it was interesting because energetically I could feel, when the topic came up, I could feel the little resistance, the little wall going up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Right. Again, but I knew it wasn't personal,
Mhm.
because I know Judy doesn't do that. She doesn't really not trust me, but there are parts of her that get threatened and they're going to rear their head. The zone one parts, we all have zone one parts hanging out that are still waiting for their opportunity to come forward, present themselves, be healed so they may run along on their merry way, right? Not all of them are healed yet. I mean, our job is to be here, and when they present themselves, say, "Oh, yeah, let's give you a hug and get you set up for the next leg of the journey,"
Mhm.
right?
Yes, and it was, yeah, it was interesting because once I voiced that truth in class, then other people were more willing to speak of any resistance they were having. Didn't have natural anything to do with Kris, but they were having resistance too. So it invited them to go ahead and speak their truth as well. And then I found, once I did that, ego calmed down. Ego was able to calm down
Yeah.
and open up, and we got to the real point of it. And the point, you know, the the issue is the pain. When I get defensive, it's to keep me from going deeper to, unearth the pain that's in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely. It was really brave and inspiring. And I know we can't go past 11:45, so we got a very short time. But for people who don't know, who haven't watched a lot of the shows, I did lose 50 pounds back in 1991. And so so for a long time, I've had experience of like what it is to be in a lot of different body shapes and mental configurations and health configurations in this world. And how I choose to process, and the procedures and processes I set up for myself to make that easy have evolved over time. And so people look at them now and they're like, oh my God, you're like an alien. But it's evolved by choice, little by little over time. But I do know, about what that journey is and what it's like to feel fundamentally not accepted in this world because you can't do the impossible, which is to control your will against your beliefs.
and there we have it, friends. On that note, we will say, go ahead and go forth and cultivate what works for you in your life.
Yes.
Right? Create those processes and procedures that bring you peace.
Yeah.
Because in peace, there is limitless possibilities on what
Yeah.
you can create.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We are Kris and Judy.
Are we?
We are. You can find us at masterfulu.com, www.masterfulu.com. Thank you for joining us, and go forth and cultivate.
Yes.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Judy.